Makoto is a talented badminton player who plays in corporate rallies for a well-known bank. But after constant bad performances, the boss gives him 1 year to prove he's worth being in their team. Makoto remembers his promise to the boss and makes it to the rally finals. Despite his talents, the scores aren't in his favor. He persistently keeps the shuttle in the air, hoping that a counterattack opportunity will come soon. But even after a few minutes, the opponent doesn't let his guard down in the slightest. Instead, the opponent serves the shuttle to Makoto, forcing him to stand at the edge of the court. At that moment, he remembered a tragic experience from his past, which caused him to freeze and lose the match. Makoto, knowing he didn't fulfill his promise to the company, begs his boss for another chance. However, they rather give his job to a black person than let him continue. With nowhere left to go, Makoto decides to move back in with his mother. On the train, he even indulges in guilt eating to forget the incident. Unfortunately, even a chilled cola isn't enough to heal his wounds. In the end, Makoto calls back home to inform his mother about the incident. She can't believe someone who was called a child prodigy was fired from his job. She claims that even prodigies have it difficult in this world. Other than that, she doesn't want him to move back in with her, as his room was taken by someone else. However, Makoto tells her that he's coming back since there isn't any other place he can live. As he regrets his life decisions, Makoto receives a call from an unknown number. The person strangely offers him a job back in his hometown. Makoto is thrilled that his career as a salaryman and corporate badminton player isn't over, although he gets worried about being late on his first day and decides to take a shortcut through the park. Unexpectedly, he finds a man close to death, asking him for water. Tatsuru's thirst disappears and his soul returns to his body when Makoto gives him the bottle of water. However, in a rush to be on time, Makoto ignores him and leaves. Just then, Tatsuru pulls him back, suggesting his tie is a little off for his first day at work. Strangely, Tatsuru got too drunk last night and started fixing Makoto's tie without his permission. And due to the clock running late, Makoto doesn't get a chance to look at what he did. He eventually makes it to the office on time where the manager introduces him as a new recruit for the sales department. But before anyone can get to his name or background, they want to know who in the good Lord's name made his tie. As the whole room bursts out in laughter, Makoto feels embarrassed and angry that his good karma betrayed him. Suddenly, Tatsuru enters the room late as usual. The boys realize that he had a fun night, but none of them are angry at him for being late. They know that overall Tatsuru is the greatest salesman this company has ever seen. He explains that the Sunlight Beverages Company has been producing refreshing drinks for 40 years, although for some reason cola is their least sold product. He then introduces Makoto to all of the staff members at the other departments. Unexpectedly, Makoto runs into his high school badminton teammate Tawya. However, their relationship isn't all rainbows and unicorns, as Makoto left the city without telling him anything. Makoto tries to apologize, but they both know he doesn't speak from the heart. Afterwards, Tatsuru and Makoto head to a few client meetings, and unexpectedly, the rookie messes up everything. He forgets his business card and mistakes one client for another. In the end, Tatsuru realizes that Makoto has a new mentor. Yet, the rookie isn't ashamed of his mistakes. He claims that his job is play badminton, and not some pitching drinks to scrawny-looking dudes. After a full day of work, Tatsuru takes Makoto to an elementary school where they practice playing badminton. He feels embarrassed and thinks that their practicing environment is unprofessional. Tawya, however, reminds him that coming to office with a strange tie was also rude. At that moment, the office gossip Takeda arrives in the room, revealing he sent everyone a picture of his introduction. Once everyone gets ready and goes on the court, the boys introduce Makoto to Sauda, a player who prefers to play singles. Upon introducing himself, Makoto reveals that he likes playing singles as well, but Sauda remembers him as the man who was wearing a bow tie this morning. Suddenly, Coach Ono arrives at the court and tells them to shut their traps. The first thing he wants to do is test out Makoto's skills in an actual match. Unfortunately, his partner is Russian as always. Soon, Tatsuru makes his way to the court, only to reveal that he'll be playing doubles with Makoto. This is something he didn't know beforehand, otherwise Makoto wouldn't have joined the team. He wants to play singles and prove that he can win with his own abilities. Tatsuru claims that he can achieve this goal playing doubles, but Makoto refutes him, reminding him they just met this morning. Eventually, Tatsuru realizes that Makoto won't budge from his place. He challenges him to a singles match and promises to let him play alone if he wins. The coach seconds his opinion, but if Makoto loses the match, he will have to play doubles with Tatsuru. Naturally, the prodigy agrees with the terms, as he is confident that Tatsuru won't hold a candle to him. The match begins with Tatsuru's serves, and the blondie uses all of his power to score the first point. For a while, the match becomes one-sided. Tatsuru is able to score 7 points with his incredible speed and serving power. On the sidelines, South believes that Tatsuru will destroy Makoto's confidence in the match. However, Tawya tells him to wait and see. He reveals that Makoto has a habit of observing his opponent at the start of the match. Once Tatsuru scores the 7th point, the Prodigy decides to counter his attack. He unexpectedly returns one of Tatsuru's serves to score the first point. Tawya reveals that after observing his opponent, Makoto can predict his opponent's next move. To everyone, it seems like he is seeing the future. However, this foresight of his is only developed after years of practice. Now, Makoto is at a level where he can sense the slightest of changes in his opponent's body, allowing him to predict their next move. Naturally, Tatsuru catches on to this ability as well. He then swiftly changes his posture and serving style midway to counter Makoto's foresight. This is when Coach Ono reveals that Makoto's foresight is a 50/50 gamble. If it doesn't work, there is no one else to cover for him in the court. This is also the reason why he believes that teaming up with Tatsuru will unlock Makoto's hidden potential. Yet for some reason, Makoto is hell-bent on playing singles. He even manages to tie the score with Tatsuru after his tactics were revealed. However, Tatsuru doesn't back down from a fight. He gives it his all. As the match reaches its climax, Makoto suddenly freezes while remembering his past. This gives Tatsuru the 1-point advantage to win the match. Later that night, Makoto walks to his apartment, thinking his first day at work was a disaster. Unexpectedly, Tatsuru follows him around like a stalker. He claims Makoto needs to learn how to enjoy his corporate life and playing badminton together. They eventually reach Makoto's house, and that's when Tatsuru reveals they'll be living together. Still, Makoto gets to spend the night alone in his room, and assumes he'll walk to work peacefully. However, after dressing up, Makoto opens the door only to find Tatsuru waiting for him. He wants to show him the perfect way to balance the life of a salesman with the pain of a badminton player. First, they need to use every opportunity they get to hone their stamina and exercise. However, Makoto refuses to run up the stairs and takes the lift instead. He then watches Tatsuru enacting with an old client. For some reason, they treat him as a friend and always order a bunch of drinks. Once the order is confirmed, Makoto suggests they should make a sales invoice as per the manual. Despite being right, Tatsuru reminds him that everything in life isn't written in the manual. They will write the invoice after leaving the building. Later that evening, they head to the court to practice their synergy. Yet, before that can happen, the coach tells them to do warm-up routines. Naturally, Makoto is unfamiliar with the height of the roofs and can't manage to serve. But Tatsuru and the others think he will get a hang of it eventually. Their club also doesn't have any cameras set up to check everyone's form while they are training. Aside from the cameras, they don't even have a proper gym to exercise. But Tatsuru reveals they use their body weights to get a good workout. Ultimately, after a killer warm-up, the two of them start practicing their patterns for the upcoming practice match. Unfortunately, Makoto and Tatsuru aren't the slightest bit compatible on the field. The blondie goes for every shot, and this is something that Makoto hates. In the end, Makoto accidentally bumps into Tatsuru, reminding him of the tragic past. Tatsuru notices that his skin has turned pale. However, Makoto acts as if nothing had happened and leaves. The group then decides to get some food at a local restaurant. There they discuss Tatsuru and Makoto's trash chemistry. They think that the two of them will be defeated in the upcoming practice match next week. Makoto feels the same way, but claims that everything is Tatsuru's fault. The two start arguing about whose fault it's going to be at the upcoming match. But even with their differences, the two of them want to win. Aside from that, they need to work together in the mornings. This time, Tatsuru takes Makoto to his biggest client. In fact, the president is so rich that he recently bought a supercar that Makoto falls in love with. After meeting with the VP, Tatsuru learns that his latest campaign increased their sales by 8%. His achievements make him a likable person. But more than that, Tatsuru is willing to do anything to achieve results. Aside from promising another campaign, he even helps stock the shelves. Naturally, Makoto reminds him that they are salespeople and their job isn't putting bottles on a rack. However, the best salesman in their company reveals he didn't get the title for anything. They must help in whatever way possible to get the slightest of opportunity. Makoto understands Tatsuru's perspective and decides to help out wherever possible. He goes back to their truck to bring a few packings of soda. While he returns to the mall, Makoto's attention gets diverted to a shady-looking person. This causes him to accidentally trip and spill the drinks on the VP's new car, hence damaging its exterior. But instead of blaming Makoto for his mistakes, Tatsuru takes everything upon himself. He claims that his poor management is to blame for the car and their company will pitch in the repair costs. Still, the VP isn't convinced and decides to rethink their business relationships. Suddenly, the VP starts talking about how he convinced his wife to buy this car after an entire year. During this time, Makoto finds the same shady-looking dude he saw outside exiting the shopping mall. He immediately pushes Tatsuru out of the way and catches him. The man throws his left hook, but Makoto's foresight sees through it in mere seconds. Unexpectedly, the man takes a small knife and points it at the rookie, forcing Tatsuru to step in to save the day. In the end, they celebrate their victory over drinks at home. Tatsuru reveals that the VP reconsidered his decision after they saved the house. However, to this point, he doesn't understand how Makoto knew that the man was a shoplifter. Suddenly, Makoto grabs a packet of chips Tatsuru was intending on eating. He reveals that he can sense what a person is going to do with little movements in their body language. Tatsuru was going to pick up the bag of chips and he saw that coming. Upon hearing this, Tatsuru realizes that Makoto is a master of non-verbal communication. He explains that most communication tends to happen through body language, and if Makoto excels at reading these hints, then he can be a master salesman. On the day of the practice match, every team from the Sunlight Beverages plays against Unisix. The first match is between Tawya and Takedo. However, they don't last much longer in front of the tag team with Ayato. He is also known as the child prodigy who won singles tournaments during his high school days. Ayato and his partner crush Tawya's team like they are ants, not allowing them to score a few points in both sets. Sauda on the other hand performs exceptionally and wins both sets his opponents. Eventually, it is Makoto and Tatsuru's match against Hayato and Daiki. As the first set begins, Hayato smashes the shuttle to score a shocking point. His exceptional partnership with Daiki gives them a complete edge over Makoto's foresight. Unexpectedly, he realizes that both of his opponents are not giving him enough clues to predict their next moves. And if Hayato makes an error, Daiki always covers for him. However, Tatsuru reminds him that he will cover for him as well. Any shot he can't reach will be returned by his physical abilities. With these things in mind, he tells Tatsuru that he will gamble on his foresight and predict their attacks. If somehow he is wrong, then Tatsuru must cover for him like his life depends on it. After losing the first set, the team comes back strong. Makoto's freight sends chills down everyone's spine. They are able to level the score in mere minutes. During this match, Makoto starts regaining the feeling which he lost years ago. However, despite winning the second set, their team loses the match awfully. At night, Makoto is pissed over the fact that he lost, but Tatsuru assures him they will meet with Unisix at the corporate tournament. Aside from that, there are various other strong opponents they will play until then. After the entire morning at work, Tatsuru and Makoto stop by the office vending machine for a cold coffee. Suddenly, Toru, a 29-year-old male from the quality assurance department, approaches Tatsuru to talk about his campaigns. Unexpectedly, the quality assurance dudes have been pissed over Tatsuru's strange offers like giving away a free detergent with a beer pack. Toru doesn't understand what's the logic behind the combination. However, Tatsuru claims that the customers like freebies even if it's detergent. In any case, he needs Tatsuru to fill out his paperwork regarding the new orders he's taking. Once he leaves, Makoto notices that all the dudes from the quality assurance department are certified ding-dongs. Still, Toru stands out the most, as he is hell-bent on ensuring the other departments are following every rule. Despite agreeing with one part of his story, Tatsuru reminds Makoto that the Toru's department is the backbone of their company. They ensure the quality of the products and the productive capabilities of all staff members are top-notch. Later that day, the sales department received news that Makoto's proposal for the factory was a success. Now, he and the others need to visit the factory and deliver the final pitch for approval. Everything is alright, but the fact remains that Makoto doesn't remember sending in any proposals at all. Still, Makoto is forced to play along, otherwise he might get kicked off the badminton team. This is a strategy Tatsuru came up with to help Makoto find interest in his job. Eventually, the rookie agrees to help out in whatever way possible. However, he doesn't know how to draft a proposal, which is something the others weren't expecting. Upon reaching the factory, the manager gives them a tour and reveals they haven't been able to keep up with demands. To assure quality and quantity, they have installed new assembly lines. And now, they want the Sunlight Beverage Company to give them a proposal about a new drink. After settling into their rooms, the boys set up a meeting in the main hall. Their main goal is to present the client with a new drink and a market strategy. For some reason, Makoto claims that green onions and ginger ale is a killer combo. He tried it once and fell in love with it. The boys don't really complain since Makoto is the one proposing the drink. However, he doesn't know anything about writing or researching. In the end, Tawya and the others are forced to handle all of the grunt work for Makoto. Seeing their enthusiasm and knowledge about such matters is overwhelming for the rookie. However, the boys don't intend on flaunting their skills. They help him understand the process of building a product and finding the perfect market fit for it through the SWOT method. Tawya explains that he needs to list out all the strengths of the products followed by its weakness, awareness, and threats. After a few hours, the boys fill up the list with the product strengths, but their only weakness is that the combination of flavors is odd. They also need to find the perfect way to package the drink. Tawya and the others think that packaging it like a souvenir would be the best strategy. However, they don't know how to make it stand out from the rest. This is when Makoto speaks up, suggesting they should use the bottles he saw earlier. The boys love his idea, and Tatsuru even suggests they use influencer marketing to spread the word around town. Eventually, they create the perfect plan to launch the drink and ask Makoto to write the proposal. Unexpectedly, his typing speed is somewhat like the sloth from Zootopia. Once their work finishes, Makoto goes outside to enjoy the warm hot springs at the hotel. Unfortunately, his alone time doesn't last long as Tatsuru joins him in the bath. Eventually, Makoto reveals that he doesn't understand their sales department and strategies. He only wants to play badminton and focus on his skills. Unlike before, Tatsuru doesn't turn things into a joke. He reminds Makoto that he doesn't need to understand things immediately. He just needs to put his heart and soul into the work, whether it's sales or badminton. Aside from that, he wants to know why Makoto doesn't jump on the court. He noticed this habit after the Unisix game but didn't have the courage to ask. Tatsuru sits there for a few minutes but Makoto doesn't say anything. He takes the signal and decides to leave without saying anything. That is when Makoto opens up about his tragic past at the inter-high tournament. At that time, he used to play doubles with his best friend. Despite losing his breath, he told Makoto to stay focused on the scoring points and leave the defense to him. However, Makoto's bad habit of interfering with every shot makes him jump backward and bump into his partner. Despite playing together for years, he didn't trust his partner enough to handle the job. This caused him an injury that stopped him from playing badminton again. During his game with Unisix, he was afraid of jumping back and injuring his friend. Whenever these thoughts enter his mind, it makes his leg freeze. After listening to his story, Tatsuru tells Makoto to forget about his worries because he will reach a serve if he can't. He reminds him that he's the better player between the two of them, igniting a fight that lasts a few hours. Eventually, when the two of them head back to their room, Tawya unexpectedly pops a party popper, wishing Makoto a happy 20th birthday. The group then celebrates a job well done and drinks for his birthday. They force Makoto to take a sip of beer now that he's reached the official age. But their plan doesn't go well, as Makoto drinks the entire tin of 16 beers to get drunk like crazy. Tatsuru tries to take his beer away and warns him about tomorrow's big proposal presentation. However, the thing backfires, as Makoto starts to drunk talk about everyone's performance in the practice match. He reveals that Taikta gets anxious on the field, which causes him to mess up simple serves. Tawya, on the other hand, intends to rely on his intuition a lot, but this habit of his turned to be his downfall. He claims that his badminton skills haven't improved since his middle school days. Eventually, he turns to Sauda, claiming he half-assed everything because he is afraid of losing. But this just makes him a coward and his play style unwatchable. Last but not least, the great Tatsuru moves terribly on the court. Makoto thinks that even an elementary school kid can think before moving, but Tatsuru is worse than them. But despite all of the bad things, he appreciates Taikta helping him in the proposal. He even thanks him for being a great listener, and Sauda for putting his mind on their pitch. However, Makoto has nothing good to say about Tatsuru other than scream about the fact his snores are awfully loud. That is when the beer finally takes effect, forcing him to fall down the table and sleep. The following morning, Makoto sleeps in the office due to his hangover. This forces Tatsuru to take up his proposal and pitch it to the client. Even the VP is impressed that Makoto has enough balls to drink before the night of a big meeting. Yet once he regains himself, Tatsuru and Makoto head to the practice court. There, Coach Ono reveals the bracket for the upcoming corporate tournament. Apparently, they have to play a few strong opponents before they can take revenge on Unisix for their defeat in the practice match. As the tournament approaches, Makoto remembers the time when he used to sit alone during recess and watch people playing badminton through the window. He didn't have the confidence back then to join the club. However, Azuma, someone who would later become his best friend, notices his gaze at the players and goes to say hello. After introducing himself, Azuma asks if Makoto is interested in playing badminton. From that day onward, some of them started playing doubles and became the best of friends. One day, Azuma asks about Makoto's choice of high school. Eventually, they decide to enroll at the same school and continue playing doubles together. They'd consider themselves the best double players in Japan until the awful incident happened. Back in the present, the prefectural rounds of the tournament begin with Sauda taking the lead over the other companies. Makoto and Tatsuru also win their matches without ease to the point where the audience sees them as serious competitors for the title. However, the company's head staff doesn't celebrate early, as the Sunlight Beverage Company needs to win 7 matches to reach the finals. Plus, out of everyone else, Makoto and Tatsuru should look out for the Tomry Transport Company in the 5th round. Only then can they hope to reach the finals. Once the first round is over, the team goes to their usual spot to celebrate with non-alcoholic beverages. They talk about the most random shit that guys in their mid-20s with no action on the side would discuss. However, after a few minutes, they realize that Makoto and Tatsuru aren't arguing like an old married couple. That is when Tawya reveals that they are working on perfecting the green onion plus ginger ale combination ever since the quality assurance department rejected their proposal. Whenever they lean in towards the onion, the flavor doesn't appeal to the masses. While on the other hand, only focusing on ginger ale would mean they are false advertising. But what's most important is the ingredients they are choosing. Still, Makoto insists that he's going to make it work no matter what. Both he and Tatsuru love the flavor of the green onions at the restaurant. Yet, they can't find the perfect combo to turn into a grape. Suddenly, the chef and owner of the place walk up to them, revealing the onions are freshly imported from a farm located on the outskirts of the city. For the next day, Makoto and Tatsuru forget about their green onion drink to support Tawya and Takeda in their game. Unexpectedly, the guys pull out a win out of nowhere, clearing the 4th round with ease. Now all that is left for Makoto and Tatsuru to take a stand against Tomry in the gift round. However, their history with them hasn't been appealing. Each time the Sunlight Beverage Company went against them, they came out with a loss. Once day 2 of the tournament ends, Tatsuru and Makoto bid farewell to the boys and visit the farm with everyone's favorite sports anime grandfather. On their way, he reveals he has been farming spring onions for over 40 years. Due to nearby river and the fertile season, his spring onions are the most popular in Japan. They are much sweeter than any other spring onion in the country. But Makoto takes a bite of one and finds it very spicy. The old gentleman reminds him that his dumbass ate the vegetable raw, which is why it wasn't to his liking. Suddenly, Haruki, the kid Makoto met at the gym, shows up to inform them that lunch is ready. That's when Makoto and Tatsuru taste the sweetness of their vegetables. They even pair with apples, which turns out to be a great combination. The nice family also helps them develop the ginger ale drink and fix their flavor. This way they won't have to worry about the product and focus on the tournament. On day 3, the team finally gets a chance to play against Tomry, also called the Golden Lions of the North. But unlike what Makoto thought, Tatsuya, the captain of their team, leads them with discipline and humility. However, things suddenly take a turn when Makoto sees Azuma on their team. The coach notices this development and quickly changes their team's lineup. He chose Takeda and Tawya to take the first match instead of their strongest doubles. Before the set begins, Tawya asks Tatsuya about his usual partner. Unfortunately, the loudmouth new guy doesn't let him answer the question. Soon, the game begins with Tomry's first serve. Unexpectedly, all of their loading work pushes their back muscles to superhuman levels, allowing them to smash the ball at high speed. After scoring the first point, the president's daughter and her little cheering squad start to support them from the sidelines. However, all of this attention triggers Takeda's stage fright. He remembers the time when his friends pushed him to confess his love in front of everyone. But it turned out that the girl he liked had a crush on someone else. Instead of understanding his feelings, the school made fun of him, scaring him from ever taking the stage again. Back in the present, Tawya tries to calm his nerves, but his efforts are in vain. In the end, they lost the match without scoring any noticeable points. The new teammate acts tough and mighty. However, Tatsuya reminds him to act with humility and shake hands with the opponents. After losing the point, the Sunlight Beverage Company has to bet everything on Sauda to win the point for them and tie the match. Luckily, his opponent is a scrawny-looking dude whose muscles are underdeveloped after losing too much testosterone on the president's daughter. From that point onward, he tries every trick in the book to overcome Sauda's great physique. However, even giving his muscles a pep talk doesn't work out well. In the meantime, Sauda wonders why his opponent is trying so hard. He claims that hard work can't close the gap between real talent and physical traits. He wins the match with ease, but the coach wonders if he even loves the sport anymore. But Sauda assures him that he loves the game as usual. Once Sauta levels the scores, it all comes down to Makoto and Tatsuru's double match against Azuma and Tetsuya's former teammate Tanizaki. However, the child prodigy finds it impossible to play against his former partner. He keeps playing the flashbacks of the incident in his mind, causing him to freeze during the match. He didn't even visit Azuma after the surgery to avoid confronting his pain. Back in the present, Tatsuru tries his best to defend the court, but his efforts alone can't keep them from scoring. Eventually, Azuma's team scores 11 points to 5 before the referee calls for an interval. However, in his heart, Azuma wishes that he had never met Makoto if their future was going to end up like this. Soon, the match resumes, but things don't change much for Makoto. He struggles to return each serve, forcing Tatsuru to come to his aid each time. The others also notice that Makoto isn't playing at the top of his game. That is when Tawya tells them that Azuma was Makoto's former doubles partner in junior high, and after the incident, he can't look him in the eyes for even a second. Instead of giving Makoto a pep talk, Coach Ono thinks that this is something he must overcome on his own. Once Makoto loses the first set, Coach Ono reminds him that playing against his former teammate must be hard on him. However, sports is a world of winners and losers. He needs to find it himself to win and advance to the next round. Otherwise, a good sales career is always waiting for him. The overall experience reminds Azuma of the fact that Makoto was mentioned in a local newspaper as a badminton prodigy. After a while, he noticed that his skills were holding their doubles team back in tournaments. Azuma also didn't get recommended to the top high school with a strong badminton team like Makoto, forcing him to take the general entrance exams. Eventually, Azuma started pushing himself harder both off and on the court. He even began practicing late hours, which put unwanted strain on his right arm. Eventually, the day arrived when the coach of one of the largest banks in Japan came to watch their game and scout new talent. Everyone was sure that Makoto would be scouted for sure, putting more pressure on Azuma. As the game started, Azuma told Makoto to focus on the attack. However, he ignored his own strategy and wanted to prove his own skills rather than work as a team. This caused him to bump into Makoto and cause an almost incurable injury. In the end, Azuma knows that his injury was not Makoto's fault. As everyone plays after the interval, Azuma remembers that he admired and wanted to be like Makoto from the start. But he doesn't understand why he is playing like a complete noob. Soon, after scoring a few points, he realizes that Makoto is feeling guilty for that incident years ago. He wishes that they had not met for the second time if things were going down this road. Nonetheless, the rest of Tomry's team is impressed by Azuma's panic. Seeing his performance, no one would believe that he had a muscle tear in his right arm. Even the coach thinks that Azuma is a great athlete. He has the ability to overcome any challenges, which is why he was recruited for the team. Once Tomry scores 11 points, the referee calls for a brief interval. Suddenly, Azuma yells at Makoto for holding back. He wants to know if his injury still haunts him to this day. He also reminds him that winning like this is meaningless. Tanizaki is surprised to see Azuma speak up for the first time. Yet, he advises him to keep his composure throughout the match. Meanwhile, Tatsuru finally loses his patience and headbutts Makoto with all his might. Despite not intending to use this much force, he is glad that his message went to his head. Tatsuru reminds Makoto that the only thing they have to do is win. For the time being, he suggests a short plan for Makoto to keep his mind off stupid things. Much to everyone's shock, the two of them start calling shots like total amateurs. This not only tells Makoto who is going for the shot, but also tells him about Tatsuru's current position. This helps them regain some of the lost rhythm and score a few points. On the other hand, Tanizaki asks Azuma to keep their opponent's momentum on the low, but he sends a gesture to Makoto, revealing that he is happy. His old habit of touching the side of face whenever he is happy reminds Makoto that he needs to respect his opponent and give it his all. He eventually starts using his foresight to predict every serve and gain the lead. But whenever Makoto's gamble fails, Tatsuru comes to his rescue and scores the potion for him. This method allows them to win the second set and tie the overall score. Before the third set begins, Coach Ono realizes that Makoto has found the flow of his game. However, he doubts that his tactics will work in the third set against seasoned players like Tanizaki. The third set surprisingly doesn't go as everyone thought, as Makoto and Tatsuru take the lead with 17 to 16 points. Unfortunately, despite regaining back the momentum, Makoto can't find it in himself to jump and return the serve. This forces Tatsuru to rush into things, but even his physical abilities aren't enough to stop the shuttle from hitting the ground. Once the game resumes, Tanizaki and Azuma target Makoto's weakness and rack up to 19 points. This makes him realize that he needs to jump backwards in the match or else they won't win. Still, using his foresight, Makoto and Tatsuru manage to win back the lead and score 20 points. The referee calls match point, putting pressure on the players to not make a mistake. Tanizaki and Azuma keep things tight, not giving Makoto a chance to read their movements. Luckily, Tatsuru is there to cover for him. But eventually, the shuttle flies in the air towards Makoto, prompting him to jump. At that moment, Tatsuru yells that he believes in his partner, allowing Makoto to leap in the air and score the winning point. Later that evening, Toru from the Quality Assurance Department comes to congratulate Tatsuru on their win this evening. The blondie, on the other hand, uses this opportunity to invite him to the badminton team. However, Toru tells him not to get ahead of himself and leaves. Afterward, the Sunlight Beverage Company joins a dinner party hosted by Tomry. Everyone enjoys and laughs, sharing their stories about badminton and life. However, Azuma can't bring himself to talk with Makoto, and so he steps outside of the hotel. Tatsuru tells his partner that this might be the best time for him and Azuma to talk. Unfortunately, the combination of king crab served with wine is more important to him. During this time, Tanizaki goes outside to ask if Azuma is comfortable playing doubles with him. He and the rest of the team don't have good filters, and thus they say whatever comes to mouth. However, Azuma doesn't have any issues with Tanizaki. He just realized that chasing after Makoto won't make him stronger. He needs to build his own path with Tomry from now on. Eventually, he also decides to settle things with Makoto, but his former partner gets drunk as hell. However, this becomes a blessing in disguise, allowing Makoto to apologize for ignoring Azuma all these years. Ultimately, Makoto gets a few days off from the tournament, but he uses this time to prepare the presentation for the Spring Onion Ginger Ale. Makoto spends the entire night writing as slow as one man can. Yet before saving the document, he falls asleep. The following morning, Tatsuru slams his door to wake up from a deep sleep. He reminded him they need to focus on their huge proposal presentation, otherwise the client would get angry. Upon making their way to the office, Tatsuru explains that everyone has been working on his proposal since the last few days. Suddenly, Tawya and the rest of the sales team ask for Makoto's assistance in finalizing a few things. Each person keeps calling him one after the other, making it a few hectic hours for the entire team. Eventually, the team decided they would hold a taste testing event at a local restaurant where they will invite the client and everyone's family. Tawya takes this chance to pull Makoto's leg, suggesting he should invite his mother to the festival. However, soon, the whole sales team joins in the fun, forcing both of them to invite their mothers. That is when Tatsuru reveals that Toru usually invites his entire family to all of their office events. There was a time when he used to play doubles with a partner in high school, and they were a famous team. Taker reveals they used to reach the finals of every tournament they played. However, now, their Toru exists only for his job and his wife and kid. At the same time, Toru carefully inspects the key ingredients of the Spring's Onion Ginger Ale, ensuring there isn't a quality breach anywhere. He didn't think that Makoto and Tatsuru would finalize the formula for their drink, allowing the manufacturers to create a sample run for the taste testing event. After spending the entire day working with the sales and manufacturing team, Makoto and Tatsuru finally get a chance to take a walk outside. Suddenly, the blondie notices a weird stain on Makoto's shirt, and so he tells him to dry clean it before wearing it again. Unfortunately, Makoto reveals that he has only one suit, hence dry cleaning is not an option. This forces Tatsuru to take him to his suit lady. She unfolds a variety of materials from Italy, England, and Japan. Not only that, she deeply explains the pros and cons of every suit. However, all Makoto sees is her beautiful face and figure. Eventually, the suit lady and Tatsuru have fun, forcing Makoto to wear odd-looking dresses. But soon, they end up finding the best pair and leave the shop. On the other hand, Tawya asks Sauda to iron his shirt and ensure there are no wrinkles before the big meetings. However, things don't go as planned for the big event. Firstly, Makoto and Tawya arrive at the venue minutes before the event is about to start. They patiently wait for the shipment to arrive. But once the truck parks, the driver reveals that the Spring Onion Ginger Ale wasn't delivered. At that moment, Toru approaches the truck with his superior, revealing there were some ingredients left over from the ginger ale. This means that there might be some other ingredients in the drink. Although none of this is confirmed, they can't ship out the drink for the event. Immediately, Tawya and the others decide to delay or change the order of the tasting. Meanwhile, Toru decides to ask the factory to inquire about the situation. During this time, Tatsuru mentions that the order slips of the drink might have been wrong. They rush back to their sales department to ask them about the slip. However, they tell them to visit the accounting department as it was given to them for billing. The accounting department, however, tells Makoto that they must have kept the slip inside the storage room. Upon hearing that, the two of them rush inside and start digging through the paperwork. After not finding anything for a few minutes, Makoto asks the accounting department manager if the order slip was filled and stored properly. His nervous attitude and gestures tells Makoto that he is hiding something. Eventually, they realize that the accounting department disregards all the bills that come at the end of the month. He begs them not to tell their boss about this, but Makoto and Tatsuru want to find their order slip. On the other hand, everyone gathers at the venue for the tasting festival. After a long time, Makoto's mother finally reunites with Tawya's mother. Suddenly, Toru's wife and his kid arrive at the scene. They are excited to taste the spring onion ginger ale created by the badminton team because this was the first time Toru talked about his work life with them. During this team, the girl from their sales department introduces herself to the crowd and starts the event. Meanwhile, back at the office, even with Sauta joining their hands to make things go faster doesn't help them with the search. Luckily, Tatsuru receives a call from Toru who just reached the factory, revealing that the workers mistakenly sent a box to them which was similar to the ginger ale's ingredients. This means that the testing lot wasn't polluted with other ingredients. Upon hearing this, Tatsuru asks Toru to send a shipment of the ginger ale as soon as possible. However, he reveals the factory had to fulfill a rush order, and so, the trucks are not available. At the same time, things become hectic at the event, as people expect to taste the ginger ale as soon as possible. However, after hearing everything Toru mentioned, Makoto thinks that their plans are not going to work out. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Azuma arrives with the shipment using the truck of the Tomry team. This helped them get things going as planned, and the people were allowed to taste the drinks. After the event becomes successful, Makoto presents the product at the next sales meeting. He claims that this product will boost sales and prove to be popular with a large number of people. The president is thrilled with the presentation, but his right-hand man doesn't like it all. He claims that the company should launch drinks that are popular with the masses. Plus, he doesn't know how they will acquire glass bottles and keep the costs low. Luckily, Makoto prepared a Word document with all the answers for their questions, but Taketer reveals that the sheet is blank. He accidentally didn't save the file before leaving his house. As Makoto tries to find a solution, Taketer holds up the meetings and keeps the questions at bay. Then he recalls one of the Tomry's players' advices about conquering their anxiety. He imagines everyone sitting commando at the meeting, which allows him to answer their questions without Makoto's document. Finally, Sauta helps put the final nail in the coffin, revealing that 89% of the guests love their drinks. These numbers impress the president so much that he gives them the green signal for the product. After the important sales presentation season, the teams get back to focusing on their tournament's performance. Out of everyone, the number team of Mitsubishi Bank is the first one to be expected to reach the finals. They are the #1 corporate team in Japan and the company where Makoto used to work. So naturally, none of them is interested in the game between Sunlight Beverages and Unisix, especially Takuma, who knows that his older brother Hayato will beat them to a pulp. However, Ibuki and Azuma, the world #1 team, asked him about the match details. Ibuki knows that Azuma used to play with Tatsuru and worked in the same company before the bank paid him. Now, he's interested in seeing how Tatsuru will play with Makoto. On the day of the match, Ayato mentions that their semifinals are going to be broadcast live all over the world. He thinks that it will increase his followers to 1 million. Plus, he will easily wreck the Sunlight Beverage Company in the solo match to rack up those 2 points. Their enthusiasm might be appreciated by others, but their coach scolds him and Hayato for getting ahead of themselves. As the match is about to begin, Toru comes with his family to watch the match. The other audience members are also excited, but deep down they think it will be a one-sided match. Soon, the game begins, and as everyone thought, Hayato's smashes dominate the play. They are so fast that even Tatsuru can't get to them. After every point, Daiki and Hayato's combination becomes more ruthless. They start to think that Tatsuru and Makoto made it to the semis by a chance of good luck. However, Toru notices they are deliberately playing into the other's team strategy. Yet, even he can't pinpoint Makoto's reasoning. Once the boys miserably lose the first set, Tatsuru tells Makoto that it's time to start counterattacking. Unexpectedly, the night before the match, Makoto told Tatsuru that they would throw away the first set. He wanted to observe Hayato's every move and plan the perfect counter for his smashes. On top of that, he thinks the gym is going to favor them in the second set. When halftime ends, both teams come back to the court with the fire to win. Naturally, Hayato and Daiki are confident to take the second set with ease. However, things prove to be different as the direction of the wind ruins his shot's trajectory. This allows Tatsuru and Makoto to counter and score the point. Afterward, Makoto tells Tatsuru that the direction of the wind has changed, and it will affect Hayato's smashes. Not only that, they start playing in a specific formation that stops Hayato from smashing the shuttle. This combined with the change in wind direction allows them to win the lead. During the second set, Hayato tries every trick in the book but fails to find an opportunity to smash the shuttle. And so, they lose the second set, making the score even. Yet, things take a turn in the final set, as the wind changes direction once again. Hayato senses this development, and adds spin on the shuttle to create the perfect chance to score. Of course, Makoto and Tatsuru can't stop his shot even if they tried. Hence, they give up on that point and focus on the match ahead. Makoto suspected that something like this might happen, which is why he created a countermeasure for it beforehand. He tells Tatsuru to forget Hayato and target Daiki instead. This won't give them the chance to add spin on the shuttle and go for the smash shots. Their strategy is so foolproof that Unisix doesn't get a chance to attack. But despite the match going in Sunlight Beverage's favor, the pressure from the match puts extra strain on Tatsuru's leg. Still, they end up defeating the world's second best team and move on to the finals. Azuma and Ibuki are glad to see that Tatsuru is doing well with Makoto by his side. Yet, they don't stick around to watch the rest of the match, knowing that it won't be easy for Sunlight Beverages to win. Now, the boys need Sauta to come out of his shell to take on a young legend Ayato. In fact, he is the youngest player ever to win the Inter-High tournament and gets selected on a corporate team. Before the match begins, Ayato publicly kisses the shuttle and names it Elizabeth. Aside from this shocker, his teammates reveal that Ayato goes on dates with his shuttles. This would creep anyone out, but the crazy red-haired chick finds it pretty hot. Soon, the referee blows the whistle to start the match, and at that moment, Ayato smashes the shuttle across the field, scoring his first point. The entire match becomes one-sided with Ayato pulling out plays that Sauta has never seen. Still, the little genius finds it strange that Sauta isn't even trying to win. The super pale boy of the quality assurance department assures him that he's trying. Yet, deep down, he is convinced that defeating Ayato is far from his reach. In the end, he just stands still and lets the shuttle hit the ground. Eventually, Takeda and Tawya realize that winning the 6th round is on their shoulders. However, he is confident ever since the newbie from Tomry told him about the secret anxiety killer technique. He imagines everyone in the gym sitting commando, which allows him to play his best. Initially, Takeda and Tawya shock their opponents by suddenly taking the lead. Unfortunately, the second doubles team of Unisix dominates the match completely. The two beverage salesmen think they will catch up to them in the second set. But it just becomes a dream, as the guys from Unisix pulverize them. Both teams head to their dressing rooms, and the audience starts to leave. However, the entire match makes him realize he was always jealous of Tatsuru and Makoto playing badminton together. He always wanted a stable and tranquil life during high school, but badminton was something that allowed him to meet his girlfriend. Before he graduated, his girlfriend told him that she was pregnant. That is when they decided to get married and settle down. His only goal in life now is to provide his wife and kid with everything he got, which is why he quit playing badminton. However, now he wonders if wanting more from his life is greedy or not. On the other hand, Makoto spends his time in the dressing room acting all gloomy, while the others are happy like they just got laid. He wonders how they can be so cheerful, but unexpectedly, the team is as frustrated as him. Yet, naturally, acting like a girl won't help things. Still, they do love the fact that he is frustrated over the team's loss, rather than celebrate his win. During this time, Sauta finds Hayato washing his face in the bathroom. He takes the opportunity to ask him about his motivation. Unexpectedly, he tells Sauta that there is a team he must defeat no matter what. Later in the evening, Makoto asks Tatsuru about his walking posture. He wonders if his foot got injured. However, Tatsuru lies, claiming it was just a small strain. Suddenly, they run into Azuma and Ibuki from the bank's team. He tells Makoto that he and Tatsuru were former teammates, yet he is glad that Tatsuru found a good partner to rely on. Suddenly, Takuma appears on the scene and mocks Makoto for losing to him in the Inter-High tournament. He reminds him how Azuma got injured in the match, causing them to lose. This angers Makoto so much that he challenges him to match in the upcoming tournament, and promises to win. Before leaving, Azuma secretly tells Tatsuru to take care of his leg, implying that something happened in his past. Meanwhile, Toru finally goes outside of the stadium after contemplating on his entire life. His son tells him that his mother just won a big award for a book. She thanks Toru for giving her an opportunity to work on her dreams. However, now she tells him to chase down the badminton team and join them. For a moment, Toru hesitates, but his wife and son push him to make that decision. He quickly runs to the team, claiming he will run, clean, and exercise every day to play in the upcoming SJ League. The boys soon get back to their training with Coach Ono, but out of everyone else, Sauda doesn't feel motivated to play the sports. His loss at the tournament against Ayato made him realize his skills are shit. Eventually, after a few rounds of playing, the coach gathers everyone to announce something really important. He unexpectedly reveals that Sauda will be playing doubles with Tawya from now on, and Toru will be the one taking his place in singles. Naturally, Tawya screams like it's that time of the month. However, Takedo reveals that he is going to step down from playing the game. In his recent match, he gave everything he had but still lost. Yet, instead of quitting the team altogether, Ono decided to make him a coach. He thinks that Takeda's eye for detail can help everyone improve a lot. Tawya, on the other hand, doesn't think that quitting after just overcoming his anxiety is a smart move. He discusses this with Sauda later that night, but even he thinks Takeda did what's best for him. During this conversation, Tawya confesses that part of him is glad that he quit playing. As a matter of fact, he always used to blame Takeda for losing the game. But even when he was the one making all the mistakes, Takeda used to apologize for dragging the team down instead of blaming Tawya. In the end, both of them are glad that Takeda found closure in his journey and hope to improve their doubles game. The following day doesn't go as planned, as Takeda arrives at the gym only to reveal that Sauda has resigned from the team. Tawya takes this personally, thinking that Sauda doesn't want to play with him, and so he barges in the quality assurance department to cause a scene. But luckily, Sauda doesn't react, and takes him outside before the security kicks them out. In the backyard, Sauda claims that he is not needed in the team, which is why the coach replaced him in singles. He knows that deep down everyone hates the way he plays on the court. But despite whatever Sauda thinks, Tawya reminds him that everyone has a lot of respect for his work and badminton skills. Yet, Sauda doesn't take his words at face value. His brothers tell him that Tawya also believes he doesn't deserve to be on the team. His statements anger the little bro enough to throw a punch, but he calms himself and leaves down before making a rash decision. On the other hand, the little brother seeks solace in Makoto's apartment, and after a few drinks, he spills everything that happened between him and Sauda. But overall, Makoto isn't interested in hearing about family drama. He'd rather go to sleep and let Tatsuru handle these situations. Though strangely, none of them have seen Tatsuru after he left the office. He even skips practice with Makoto for 2 weeks straight, claiming he needs to be somewhere important. Naturally, his odd behavior makes everyone suspicious that he has got himself a new girlfriend. Being the queen of office gossip, Takeda takes it upon himself to get to the bottom of the truth, but Makoto still thinks that girls and Tatsuru are like Kryptonite and Superman. Aside from that, he notices that Tawya didn't come to practice as well. In fact, the poor guy hasn't even been home for 2 nights. He needs to redo the design on their green onion ginger ale before tomorrow's presentation. However, the person who designed it refuses to make any revisions. Apparently, he is infamous for not changing his original designs even if the client asks, and God, I wish I was someone like him too. Anyways, Tawya doesn't give up on his search and decides to call a few other designers. Yet, despite reaching out to 9 different people, he finds no one willing to complete the design by dawn. At the same time, Makoto enters the sale room, offering to help his friend out of a pickle. However, from some strange reason, Tawya acts like everything is normal. His body language tells Makoto that he is in big trouble. Unfortunately, he can force someone to take his help without their consent. As he leaves the office, he runs into Sauda, who claims that he is also doing overtime. But the grocery bag in his hands tells Makoto that Sauda is worried about his little brother. As expected, he goes inside the sales room to give him food, knowing that Tawya doesn't eat or drink once he is in the groove. He also admires his tenacity of never giving up even if the odds are against him. He helps Tawya finalize the design document. After spending the whole night in torture, the boss calls Tawya, saying that his designs were perfect for the drink. This gives him and Sauda the chance to go back home, only to find that the older NPC of a brother messed up the entire place. As Tawya cleans the house, Sauda thinks about their experience working together on the design issue. On the other hand, things get worse with Makoto, as the hot chick in their sales department reveals that Tatsuru is getting married and taking a promotion. He had been refusing to climb the corporate ladder to ensure his focus on the court was maintained. He focuses on defensive plays. Makoto finds this odd behavior suspicious and decides to vent his anger with a few beers. He refuses to believe that any woman in the world would be desperate enough to be his wife. During this time, he accidentally throws a strand of noodles on the secretary director's face. This makes him angry enough to blame Tatsuru for not handling his subordinates. However, Makoto stands up for his partner, claiming he gives his best at work and badminton. More than that, he claims that their team is going to win the upcoming SJ League. The following morning, he goes to the office, only to learn that Tatsuru is going on a business trip to another city. He instantly rushes over to the train station, confronting his partner about his lack of performance on the field. At that moment, Tatsuru reveals that he wants to quit playing doubles with Makoto and take a break from the game. After breaking the news, Tatsuru leaves for his business trip. Makoto, on the other hand, decides to keep his poker face in front of the guys. He comes into the gym, practices, and serves everyone every day and leaves. Not only that, he even handles most of Tatsuru's clients perfectly. Later that evening, Ono reveals that Tatsuru's knee has been injured for a long time. He tried every trick in the book, but the doctors say that another injury in the same spot will ruin his career. Unfortunately, things went haywire at the game against Unisix, where Tatsuru used his leg to its limit. In the end, Makoto can't do anything but accept the truth. He steps outside of the office and finds that Takedo was listening to their conversation. Even he is frustrated that Tatsuru didn't value him enough as a coach to reveal the truth. During their conversation, Makoto wonders what Azuma would do in this position. But unexpectedly, the others don't respect him as much because he left the team and joined up with the bank. Ultimately, Makoto decides to take a day off from work, get his racket fixed, and visit his mother. Unexpectedly, he runs into Ibuki, who is trying to find his way around town. The #1 player asks about his doubles experience in the Sunlight Beverage Company. However, Makoto reveals that they might end up playing singles again. That is when Ibuki takes him to a nearby gym and challenges Makoto to a friendly match. Although Ibuki claims that it is a friendly match, he goes all out against Makoto to teach him a lesson. Naturally, after playing doubles for a while, Makoto started relying on Tatsuru to return the serves. He leaves his sides wide open for Ibuki to score 20 points without breaking a sweat. At that point, Makoto starts wondering why his foresight isn't working against Ibuki. He thinks that maybe the number player in the world doesn't have any weak spots, but then the shuttle comes his way, and Makoto thinks that Tatsuru will return the save. Meanwhile, Tatsuru meets up with Azuma, revealing that his knee is at its limit. He always knew that Azuma left the team to ensure he won't play again. However, Tatsuru selfishly wanted to play doubles, and now he might ruin Makoto's career. Seeing him sob like an old loser pisses off Azuma. During this entire conversation, Makoto makes his way to his mom's place to pick up his clothes. Yet, eventually, he decides to stay for dinner and talk about his childhood. His mom mentions that they used to live in the area where the Sunlight Beverages held the tasting event. He scrolls through the pages like Instagram, only to find a strange shuttle inside. On the next page, he mentioned the date when they last moved from Tokyo. He wrote that he wants to focus on playing badminton and become a battery man like his friend. Meanwhile, as Tatsuru returns from his business trip, he recalls the days when his playstyle sucked. The entire office used to make fun of his sales and badminton skills, claiming he's a burden on the company. Then one day, he ran into young Makoto in Hippo Park. From that day onward, the two of them started playing badminton every day. That evening, Tatsuru gave him the shuttle feather and promised to play with him one more time. 10 years later, Tatsuru noticed Makoto's name in the starting line of Mitsubishi Bank's team. Suddenly, Makoto shows up at the park with the feather in his hand. He proposes that they will think of something about his knee, but he doesn't want Tatsuru to quit the game. They might even change their play styles depending on the conditions. Tatsuru and Makoto get back to practice how they used to. He explains that playing with an injury is more about mental fortitude than physical strength. On the other hand, Tatsuru stands on stage with Unisix, Tomry, and Mitsuhoshi Bank. The reporter asks him about his journey so far in the tournament. But unexpectedly, the usually confident Tatsuru breaks down on camera due to nervousness. He blabbers some nonsense, yet the audience doesn't laugh, knowing that he is a brilliant badminton player. Meanwhile, the executive director creates a plan to dismantle the badminton team during the tournament. He reveals that Tatsuru gave him the perfect opportunity to carry out his plan without fail. On the day of the semis, Coach Ono arrives at the court, revealing that the higher-ups called him into an emergency meeting at the last second. Naturally, the boys are pissed off about the entire situation, but Ono assures them that he's handling things. In the meantime, he wants Sauda and Tawya to play the first match, and Toru to win the singles. If Tatsuru doesn't come before the final match, then Makoto won't have any choice but to play with Takedo. While this is happening, the executive director or douchebag in my books blames Tatsuru for breaking the vice president's arm in a hotel. Tatsuru, however, stays calm and states that the vice president fell on his own. In fact, the director was present and watching everything unfold. The president of the company can't believe that Tatsuru would do something so awful. He tried to postpone the meeting to let him play the tournament. But obviously, the director defiantly claims that Tatsuru must be punished for his crimes. He even denies watching the vice president falling on his own, creating suspicion in the entire board that Tatsuru is a liar. In the end, they demand his resignation on the spot, and the end of everyone's career on the badminton team. The president thinks the board is being excessive, yet he alone can't stop anyone. At the same time, the red-haired hot chick, whose name I know but don't want to mention, approaches Makoto to inform him about the incident the other day. She and Tatsuru were invited to dinner by the vice president and the director. There, the douchebag started harassing her, forcing her to drink wine and visit the bar with him. Eventually, Tatsuru took a stand for her and drank the wine himself. He even invited himself to the bar that they were playing to go. This causes the vice president to stand in anger and push Tatsuru away. But the opposite of what he intends happens, and the douchebag falls to the ground. Upon hearing the entire story, Makoto decides that he will step in and handle the situation himself. Meanwhile, back in the meeting room, the director mentions that Tatsuru tends to bend company rules whenever he wants to. He ordered an outside shipment from Tomry without consulting the accounting or quality assurance department. Not only that, his last-minute changes force the other employees to work overtime. This is why many have complained about his abrupt behavior and decision-making. But not all of the board members are against him. Some mention how their clients are happy because Tatsuru makes things happen on the spot. Yet the director still instinctively thinks that it costs them more money than it should. Tatsuru admits that he goes overboard a few times. However, he still insists that he hasn't touched the vice president. This is when the director shows his true colors. He claims that if Tatsuru isn't going to accept the truth, then they would have no choice but to dismantle the badminton team. Speaking of which, Sauda and Tawya start their match against Unisix. But unfortunately, they soon find out why they are the second best team in the world. Tawya and Sauda try every trick in the book, yet their Hayato dominates the match with his smashes. They didn't expect that Sauda would play doubles with his brother of all people. Still, they were hoping to play a real doubles team like Tatsuru and Makoto. As this happens, Tatsuru fights for the rest of the team, claiming they have nothing to do with the incident. However, the director believes their reputation will be ruined if word was leaked that Tatsuru put a hand on the vice president. More than that, he thinks that the badminton team is a waste of money. They can use those funds to expand their business or give it to the shareholders and employees. In the end, Tatsuru realizes the director's hidden motive, but instead of fighting back, he decides to resign himself. Yet, before he can say those words, Makoto suddenly barges in the room to stop the meeting. Over at the court, Hayato and Daiki's combination dominates the second set as well. At this point, everyone from the Sunlight Beverages company realizes they will lose if the brothers don't find their groove. Unexpectedly, Daiki gives them a chance to smash the ball, but for some reason Sauda comes forward in his line of sight. He slightly tilts his head to the side to let Tawya's smash pass through and score the point. Hayato thinks it was a lucky shot that won't happen again. Yet, the brothers recreate this miracle to counter the second best player of the world. For the next few points, this strategy does wonders for Tawya and Sauda. However, once Daiki and Hayato realize where the shots come from, it's easier for them to counter it. Everyone thinks that the match is over, but Tawya smashes the shuttle on the net to score the point. He repeats this process over and over to win the set, leaving everyone shocked. During this time, Tatsuru is about to announce his resignation in front of the board. But unexpectedly, Makoto comes in and headbutts him so hard that they fall over. He reminds him that the team and he needs Tatsuru more than anyone else. The vice president, however, blames him for his injuries, claiming Tatsuru needs to get fired, otherwise their reputation will be in smoke. Yet, Makoto doesn't take shit from someone he doesn't like. He reveals that the red-haired hot chick who he also wants to bang told him how the vice president forced her to drink wine. This made Tatsuru stand up for the poor girl, and when the vice president pushed him, he fell on his back like an old man. The entire board starts speculating if the director and the vice president fabricated this entire thing to get rid of Tatsuru, but they still insist that keeping Tatsuru around is a bad idea. That is when Makoto sees the vice president slam his bandage on the table. He tosses a can of soda at him, which he comfortably catches, revealing everything was a drama to dismantle the badminton club. Despite the vice president running away in shame, the director still remains hell-bent on saving the company's money. He bets that their team would have been knocked out by now. However, Makoto and Tatsuru bet that they will win the tournament this year. Over at the court, Sauda and Tawya finally match their opponents' playing style. Still, they are one step short to getting the victory. As the game goes on, Tawya starts losing his composure and stamina. This causes his shot power to plummet down the drain. Everyone, including Hayato, realizes this development and tries to use it to their advantage. Sauda, on the other hand, refuses to let this slide. He finally comes out of his shell to help Tawya shoot across the court. Hayato swiftly returns the serve, but Sauda immediately changes his center of gravity to counterattack. At this moment, Sauda realizes that Tawya has been pitching in wherever he can't reach, and now he will stop being scared about not living up to Tawya or anyone and play to his full potential. Their back and forth tells Hayato that these two brothers are really close. This reminds him of the time when he used to play with Takuma. Little by little, Takuma started thinking that Hayato is holding back against him. But the truth was the opposite. His brother was so much better than him. Spacing out in the middle of the game causes him to lose the point. As the score reaches 19-all, Hayato gets anxious, and due to this he slams the shuttle outside the court. Sauda and Tawya realize they need to hold their grit for one more point. After a lot of back and forth, Tawya finally gets the chance to hit his net rolling shot. However, this time, Hayato refuses to give them the game without a fight. He knocks the shuttle over to their side, but Sauda gets there in time to win the game. After coming back from the meeting later that night, as everyone dozes off in the night, Makoto asks Tatsuru if it's okay to keep things secret from the team. In response, he tells him that they were planning to win the tournament one way or another. Telling them about the deal will only add unwanted pressure. On the day of the tournament, Coach Ono informs the team that Mitsuhoshi has been changing their doubles order in every match. And by following the pattern, he can tell that Azuma and Takuma will play in the third match. This means that the Psychic brothers will go first, and Toru will fight against Ibuki. Their rivalry is something that was the talk of the town when they were in high school. Last but not least, the final match will be played by Makoto and Tatsuru to put the final nail in the coffin. Minutes before the match, Makoto goes to the vending machine to grab himself an iced coffee. Unexpectedly, Takuma approaches to strike fear in his heart. He claims that he was looking forward to playing with Hayato. However, beating them will also give him the same dopamine. Not only that, he wants to prove that he can win without his partner helping him. Initially, Makoto ignores whatever the black boys say, but talking shit about their partners is something he hates. Makoto promises to teach him that he cannot win without his partner's help against him and Tatsuru. Meanwhile, everyone from the Sunlight Beverage Company shows up at the match. Even some of their clients are interested in seeing Tatsuru compete. Not only that, everyone that has supported the team from day one comes to cheer them on. But the first match doesn't really go as they thought because Sauda and Tawya win comfortably. The two doubles partners from Mitsukoshi start fighting each other on the stage, ruining their team's reputation. In the end, they are demoted for losing the match hand and their reputation on stage. On the other hand, Hayato realizes that everything Sauda and Tawya did in their match wasn't a stroke of luck. Yet, Daiki wants him to act normal, otherwise the others might start feeling scared of Sunlight Beverages. Soon, the two singles players Ibuki and Toru step onto the stage, and with them comes a buzz around the entire stadium. He scores multiple points without even giving Toru a chance to counterattack. Eventually, he gains a substantial lead, which makes Toru realize that his 7-year hiatus has allowed Ibuki to climb to the top of the world. At the same time, Coach Ono analyzes both of their play styles and realizes that both Ibuki and Toru like to play defensive. This means they search for each other's opening to use it for a scoring chance. Toru knows this very well, as he can tell how far Ibuki has gone in the 7 years he was banging his wife. At that moment, he leaves his old defensive play and focuses on the attack. Unexpectedly, this changes the tide of the match, as Toru starts catching up with Ibuki, but he doesn't catch up but surpasses him an instant. And soon, Toru scores 21 points to win the game. Naturally, the entire stadium stands up, applauding Toru for his brilliant play. However, the man knows that Ibuki has a habit of taking things slow in the first set. He observes his opponent and crushes them in the last 2 games. Just as Toru expected, Ibuki starts playing for real in the second round. He scores 21 points to win the set before Toru can get past 10. The entire stadium believes that coming back from this loss would be impossible for someone retired for 7 years. Even Toru realizes that he can't beat Ibuki as the gap between them is too far. But then suddenly, he hears the voice of his son cheering him on, telling him not to give up. The support from his family and his teammates help Toru realize that he isn't alone in this match. He is supported by everyone that has forced him to play again. From that point onward, the match starts to change again, with the scores tied 1-1. Winning this match is the only way Ibuki can give his team a winning chance, and so he goes all out. However, Toru doesn't let him get past him that easily. He fights back with everything he has to score 19 points. As both players play for the final round, Ibuki's respect for Toru goes to another level. He claims that he is a worthy opponent to defeat. In the final moments of the match, Ibuki goes for a smash, but then at the last second, he hits a drop shot. Despite trying his best, Toru fails to get to the shuttle in time and loses the match. While both players shake hands, the defeated father claims that he was crushed entirely. However, Ibuki claims that he made him run for his money. He appreciates his playing style and thanks him for a great match. Even the audience understands how he feels and stands up to congratulate him for his performance. After some time, the final doubles team faced each other on the court. Makoto naturally tries to fight back, but Tatsuru thinks that everything Takuma just said is true. However, now they stand in the court where winning is the only thing that matters. Unexpectedly, Takuma doesn't go for the attack to test out his opponent's skills. He finds it strange that Tatsuru isn't playing his usual jump shots. This is something that he's known for, but after a while he realizes that something is off about them. He takes advantage of this fact and shoots his shuttle far away from Tatsuru. The trajectory of the shot forces Makoto to make a rash decision. He quickly tries to reach the shuttle, but in the process, Makoto slips and badly injures himself. Luckily, the doctor on the court quickly takes him to the side, ensuring that there is no damage to Makoto's eyes. After a brief checkup, he tells the coach that Makoto's eye didn't retain any damage. However, if the cut gets any bigger, then they may have a big problem. Naturally, Tatsuru and the others want to forfeit the match and take him to the hospital as soon as possible. But Makoto, being a stubborn little child, insists that he can play the game without any trouble. He promises to quit the match if things get any worse. Soon, he steps on the field with a bandage on his left eye. Yet instead of appreciating his opponent's sportsmanship, Takuma insults him for acting like a martyr. Still, Makoto and Tatsuru ignore the NPC's talk and focus on their game. For the time being, Makoto asks Tatsuru to handle things for him for a while, until his eye can get better. However, playing alone against Takuma and Azuma is no easy feat. Still, the boy grits his teeth and manages to keep things in check without letting Takuma take the lead. Eventually, they get 8 points ahead, and this gives Takuma enough confidence to start taunting the sleeping lion. Before this point, Tatsuru was worrying about taking Makoto to the hospital. But now, after Takuma's smug talk, he decides to teach him a lesson, which his father, who went to buy milk and never came back, couldn't teach. This is the point where things change for the better, as Tatsuru uses all of his training with the para coach Akira to its fullest extent. His core strength paired with enhanced agility allows him to return smashes from Takuma, tying the score. But soon, Takuma pulls out his drop shot, which catches him off guard. Tatsuru tries to get to the shot, but his injury gets in the way. Unexpectedly, at that moment, Makoto comes out of his shell to counterattack. Finally, the painkillers he took before the match started taking effect, allowing him to play at full capacity. Thanks to this, the two of them pull out combos that help them win the second set with ease. During break time, Takuma tells Azuma to stand aside in the corner and not interfere with the match. He wants to play the match alone and prove to the world that he doesn't need anyone. In fact, all of his life, he has been good at sports. He used to play various sports and defeat players who practiced for years. People thought that he was a child prodigy, yet only Hayato knew how much hard work he put into improving his skills. Then one day he introduced him to badminton, and naturally Takuma fell in love with the game instantly. He practiced hard to defeat his brother in a singles match but could never return his smashes. Despite this, Takuma wished to play doubles with Hayato and become the best pair, until one fateful day when Takuma finally defeated his brother in a singles match. Takuma thought that his brother was holding back, but deep down Hayato realized that his little brother had gotten better at badminton than him. From that point onward, he moved out and picked up a job. Back in the present, Takuma starts playing by himself and scores a few points. But after a while, Makoto realizes his intentions, hence he comes up with the perfect counter-attack. Both Tatsuru and Makoto confidently predict their every attack, turning the game in their favor. Eventually, as they started to gain the lead, Azuma realized that he couldn't let the game go on like this. He watches Makoto and Tatsuru working together and decides to come back into the game. He tells Takuma that the only way they can is by switching to defense, allowing Makoto and Tatsuru to slip up. Ultimately, the game balances out with both teams reaching the 20s without fail. However, Makoto notices that his cut has been opened again. Tatsuru immediately advises him to throw the match, as this injury might ruin his career. He reminds him that he's young and can play for years to come. As Tatsuru goes to the referee, Makoto confesses that he wants to play doubles with him. Otherwise, the game has no meaning at all. The two of them resume the game once again and play for match point. Tatsuru tells Makoto that he will have his back, just like when Azuma got injured. But this time around, he trusts his teammate to finish the job. Naturally, Tatsuru pulls out all the stops in the final moments and smashes the shuttle to win the tournament. As the team celebrates, Hayato goes to the dressing room to invite him back to his mother's place for their favorite food. In the end, the two brothers make up and promise to meet in the next tournament's finals. On the other hand, the president tells his director that the badminton team doesn't produce cash directly. However, the excitement they build in everyone's heart is priceless. Eventually, the spring onion ginger ale became one of the most popular drinks in Japan, as the sales team got an order for hundreds at a time. Meanwhile, Tatsuru presents a perfect plan to secure nationwide distribution. He gets promoted to a sub-chief, and his legs fully heal to their perfect state. On the other hand, Makoto is promoted to the manager of the sales team, and just like Tatsuru once trained him, he has to train a new employee, teaching him the ins and outs of being a battery man. That's it for today, my fellow men of culture. Like and subscribe the channel for more plot-filled recaps.